president, I truly dislike the man. And I don't want to feel that way about someone. But he has really put this nation into a quandary of what direction we're going to go into, the direction of free enterprise, direction of liberty that our founders have put in place for us, or a president who wants to take us back into the Europe style of economy, which is failing. As a matter of fact, Europe, Lou, is trying to get their way out of the mistakes they made. And so if any of our listeners out there, I would love to hear how they feel about what's going on, and are they angry about it, disappointed about it? In my case, I have a true dislike for the president, Lou.
Well, let's give them that number, 888-577-4487. That's Sanity Check, 888-577-4487. Michael, as we mentioned to you prior, this past week, there's people visiting us from all over the place. It really is. Our sites, whether it's been YouTube or our sites, Independent Gazette, we have Muckraker News. All our sites have visitors from every single state in the union this past week, and some of the stories that we're talking about, and it's really good from around the country. So not only around the country, but from around the world. I can't believe that we had visitors from Italy and Thailand and Finland, South Korea, France, Saudi Arabia, Austria, Algeria, Romania, South Africa, Ireland, Norway, Argentina, Brazil, Germany, New Zealand, Denmark, Australia, Japan, Mexico, Sweden, Netherlands, United Kingdom, Canada. Some of the stories that we're talking about, certainly the custody for cash issues, those issues that judicial reform is just catching on. I could tell you right now that, and you know that we've been inundated with stories from here locally, people talking about all kinds of issues, but certainly the judicial reform has touched it, and certainly we've had a lot of information, people coming to us now that the election cycle has started up. The next thing up on the parade here is the primaries. Right now we're in a challenge period. I know folks are looking at that, and then of course independents could get on, but things are changing, and so we have to remind not only ourselves sometimes, but our audience what we do and why we're doing things, and because with all these new people listening, what we want to make sure is that they understand who you are, what I stand for, what you stand for, what X stands for, the people that are coming on. So throughout our show, maybe we need to do that. Today is St. Patty's Day parade here in Scranton, and we will have a booth set up there, and we'll be handing out the Scranton Independent Gazette. We'll be waking up folks there right along the parade route, but we'll be doing that in a nice way. Today, Michael, is also the Ides of March, and that's where I wanted to start a little bit today, because certainly when you just talked about President Obama, what I'm going to talk about here briefly brings us back to the Carter days and the Ides of March, Et tu, Brute. And do you remember that Caesar there with the knife in the back? And that was Latin. And it just reminded me a little bit when I was living in Montana. And once again, folks, I had lived in Montana for 25 years before coming back to the Northeast where I was born and raised. But all those living out there and our children growing up, I was reminded about Et tu, Brute in Latin itself, Michael. Talking to a babysitter. It had to be early 90s, maybe the year, it was in the 90s. My children were still young, and I remember taking the babysitter home, and just through conversation, I had asked her what she was studying, what was what was happening in school, how things are in school, and she was a senior in high school, and she had mentioned to me that she was struggling with algebra. And I started, I really questioned that afterwards, and I'm thinking to myself, I graduated in 1969, and the Et tu, Brute Latin, I had 2 years of Latin, I had 3 years of French, I had taken algebra. I think it had to be my freshman year because I remember taking trigonometry, geometry, advanced math. I had calculus. This was all in high school. Besides history and geography and religion, I mean, it just went on. On the sciences, biology, we had chemistry, we had physics. And it just jumped out at me, what are kids learning? And that was back in the 90s. And then brings me back to Jimmy Carter days. We didn't have a Department of Education until 1979. You know, you had your local school boards deciding at that particular point in time what kids are learning. And instead of having one engine of ingenuity, now we only have, you know, we had 50 back then, perhaps. Maybe the states had all their, you know, Department of Educations. But that's what happens when we have a central form of government and one mindset. And I just wanted to bring that up. I was just thinking, once again, you know, the whole Et tu, Brute, and I had gotten a message from, I think, the Tea Party Patriots. And it says, "Dear Patriot, dear fellow Patriots, Senate Republican leader Mitch McConnell just told the left-wing New York Times that his goal this year is to crush the Tea Party. So, Et tu, Brute, Tea Party."
It absolutely amazes me because, in my opinion, the Tea Party has really been the only thing that's been propping up the Republican Party to continue to even be a viable party. You look at, you know, the Ted Cruz's of the world. You look at the Mike Lees. These are all Tea Party candidates who have really mixed things up in Washington and have gotten people interested in their government again. It wasn't the established Republicans. And, you know, they're going to blame everybody except to look into themselves and realize that they are so out of touch. We've talked about before, when we go to Republican events, they're all gray-haired guys like me. I want to see the youth involved in this. I want to see them. You know, X talked about CPAC, and you had very little minorities there at the product, and yet there are people of color who believe in the same things that we believe in, and yet they feel alienated. And that's the Republican establishment. And yet they want to point fingers at the Tea Party and to break our backs. But I have to tell you, Mr. McConnell, we're not going anywhere. As a matter of fact, every time you flap your lips, we get stronger. So keep flapping them, Mr. McConnell.
Well, you're listening to Sanity Check, 888-577-4487, 888-577-4487. If you want to blow off a little steam, just like Michael is doing right there. But you know what? McConnell is not throwing a knife in your back like Et tu, Brute, like Brutus with Caesar. And for those that don't realize what that means is that he turns around and he says, "Even you, Brutus, my friend right. is throwing the knife in my back." Well, McConnell's not throwing the knife in the Tea Party's back. He's looking at you in the eyeballs and chucking it right into your heart. So, so as the elections come up, as you're looking forward, and everything that we talk about, how so much of this is all tied into, Michael, what's been going on. You know, we talk about the free and equal elections. We talk about, you know, judicial reform, and then of course a free and independent press, and how this all ties into how, as we move forward, how are we going to change? How are we going to change what's happening in our local communities? And certainly, we need those. We need that free and independent press. Certainly, what we're doing here, certainly here on Sanity Check, 94.3 FM, The Talker, we're informing individuals out there. You also mentioned about, older, gray-haired guys, and I'm going to talk to when X comes on in the next segment here. He's been pushing, if you remember, going down to CPAC, and he says all the, YAL, Young Americans for Liberty. We just sponsored. We are now a sponsor for their convention that's coming up, and we're going to talk a little bit more about that. Certainly, it's Saturday, March 29th, and we're putting it right out there because we don't mind debates. But for those that are in the elephant party, for those that are in the donkey party, the libertarians, they're going. Those pesky libertarians are going to go to that Young Americans for Liberty conference. And we're going to be a part of it. And we're going to have a booth there. And we're going to be handing out our papers and the muckrakers. And we're going to be part of what they're doing. And certainly we encourage everybody, certainly conservatives. It actually calls their brochure says, "Calling all libertarians and conservatives. You better get there. Pennsylvania State Convention." And X will be talking about that energy that he saw down at CPAC, and it's good to see the young folks involved, the young folks that are getting involved in what's going on locally here, Michael, with our own newspaper. Emily Rose, who was the head of the YAL group here at the University of Scranton. I just handed off to her yesterday, just before she went on to spring break, Files. You could hardly hold how much information has come to us, and instead of going down maybe to Fort Lauderdale or Miami to party her spring breakaway, she's going to be doing research on 3 of the custody for cash cases up here, digging into what is going on. So it's encouraging, and we're laying it out because we want debate, Michael. We want people to know what we're not afraid to debate, and that's why we're letting people know. That's why we're letting the Donkey Party know about the Young Americans for Liberty convention coming up. Certainly, conservatives should know about it. If you're a Republican, if you're the Republican Party here, you better check it out because it's pretty. They're not only exciting. I believe hundreds. It might even be 800 groups in colleges around the country. It's a huge group, and we're going to encourage people to certainly get to the Young Americans for Liberty conference.
We know. I find it very encouraging and somewhat funny when I think about what we've been able to do as the Independent Gazette. And, in the past, people, when they were scared or in trouble, they go to the police officer or they go to a local judge or possibly even the
Who are you going to call?
Who are you going to call today? Independent Gazette. And I find that, and you know why, Lou? Because it's about trust and it's about truth. And that's what people respond to. And there's very few venues out there that they can actually trust to go to with such information that could be damaging to them, that could possibly, and they're afraid too, Lou. So there's true fear amongst or fear from those that used to be in our government to protect us, Lou. So this is where we've come as a culture. But you know what? Someone had mentioned that the 4th branch of government is the press, and a true press, an independent press. And that's really what I think we have with the Independent Gazette.
Yeah, we do, Michael, and a couple other quick notes here, just to stay on topic, some of the things that we have talked about over the last few weeks. And for our new listeners, one of the things that we do is we lay out initiatives. We go to not only our elected officials, but our not the elected officials, we go to the press. And one of the things that we've been asking about is the debate commission, the presidential debate commission. I just want to keep following up on that. I did call the King of Beers just again this week, and they said they will get back to us. Their public communications department will get back to me. We are now, I think, in the 3rd week that we're calling them. But for those that are just listening, the Presidential Debate Commission, that phony debate commission, that 5013C corporation sponsored by the King of Beers, it does anything but. It is designed to make sure there are only 2 people on the stage. They don't want to have this debate. They don't want to have the conversation like we were just talking about, Michael. So that's important. We want to make sure that we will continue to stay on that. We're going to ask our audience to come up with perhaps another slogan. Maybe instead of Budweiser, the King of Beers, maybe we call it Budweiser, the King of Stifle for less of a better name. But I'm sure somebody out there will come up with the right slogan that we could put on a T-shirt, and what we will do is continue to inform our audience and inform people that are picking up the Independent Gazette. We're going to take a break. When we come back, we got X. We got a lot to talk about today, Michael.
94.3 FM, The Talker. Don't listen to a word I say. The screens all sound the same. For the truth may vary, this ship will carry out while we set to show.
As we say all the time, don't listen to a word we say. Do your own research. This is 94.3 FM, The Talker, Sanity Check, Libertarian Lou, Tea Party Mike, 888-577-4487. And as always, Mr. X is on the line with us. Good morning, Mr. X.
Good morning, gentlemen. Busy week. And we're sitting here watching Dianne Feinstein. Somehow now NSA spying is bad when they're spying on her for a change. And this proves the hypocrisy of elected leaders. This is how you know someone like the Feinsteins and so forth are basically authoritarians at heart. It's an always a do as I say, not as I do type of personality that loves and gravitates towards power. The interesting thing is the person that you would probably always want in charge of things would be the person who least wants to do the job. It's kind of like, what did everybody, I remember the old movie Spartacus. I mean, not Spartacus. What was the movie with Russell Crowe about Rome?
Gladiator.
Oh, God, what was it?
Gladiator?
Gladiator. Yeah, the greatest part, the greatest scene in the entire movie of Gladiator was the part where Maximus is talking to, the Caesar of the time, and he says, look, the Caesar says to Maximus, he says, look, I need you to take charge. I need you to be in charge. I can't trust my son to run this country. It's going to be a disaster. And then Russell Crowe, as Maximus, says, I'd love to, Caesar, but you have to understand, I just want to go back to be with my wife and kids. I'm not the right guy for the job. And then the Caesar person says to him, that's why you're the right person for the job. Because, unlike everybody else around me who wants my job, you're the person that just wants to be left alone and, live your life in peace with your family and your loved ones. And this is kind of what we have here, is this strange sort of psychology that people who have a psychotic nature, and this has been proven in multiple studies, gravitate towards positions of power. You start to understand why is the world the way it is. It's because psychopaths and sociopaths gravitate and need to be in charge of other people. They need to tell other people what to do in order for them to feel good about themselves. So when you see someone like a Dianne Feinstein out there somehow having a big objection to things, you really understand the nature of what's going on here. And that's what came down a lot with the NSA vote and the failed Syrian vote that they were going to have, that there was so much of a revolt from the American public in regards to this, that there are Republicans and Democrats, you think they're different, but they're not. They are just always voting for more and more power. The only thing they're arguing about is who has the power. And this is kind of where a lot of this Tea Party movement and momentum has been coming from, especially with the y'all groups that you've been talking about. If you sat them, most of these younger kids down in a room, and remember, y'all has over 500, they're on 500 campuses and have over 100,000 members that are out there. One of the things they all have in common is they're fed up with the corruption, and they realize that the way of cutting down the power is to cut off the money.
Well, certainly with y'all, the Young Americans for Liberty, X, they have their convention Saturday, March 29th. That's at Penn State University Park, Pennsylvania. That's from 9 a.m. to 7 p.m. All ages are invited. And just looking at some of the other sponsors, and we're glad to be part of this, and certainly we'll talk more about this next week. But the Campaign for Liberty, they have the Heritage Action, the Heritage Foundation. I'm just looking, Freedom Works. So the Tea Party Patriots, Michael, Students for Liberty, FIRE. Remember that FIRE, guys? They spoke at, that's an organization that spoke at our Restoring Freedoms event here a little over a year ago, and that's a great organization. So all good stuff. We're going to take a phone call here. It looks like Russ from Carbondale. Good morning.
Good morning, guys.
Good morning.
Hey, I wanted to call in earlier about the legal system, but I was kind of hesitant until something X said here about psychopaths being in positions of power and gravitating that way.
Russ, you took my fire there a little bit, because I was going to jump in on that too. It was exactly right. I wrote that down on my notes. The cesspool that we look at our judicial system here in Scranton, Lackawanna. The more we get into this, I got to tell you, it is really unbelievable. Not to cut you off, but go ahead. Speak to us.
Well, yes, I had a lot of dealings with the legal system in a neighboring county back in the late 90s and the early 2000s, and I couldn't understand it, why I was having so much trouble, and my family and my relationship with my children was destroyed then. And literally the legal system took sides with a spouse who was a criminal and a drug addict, left my children with her, and it put me through the ringer. And I've been a law-abiding citizen all my life and did nothing but work hard for a living, And I couldn't really understand what the devil was the problem there. They took every tack they could to seem to me to drain every dollar they could from my wallet And if I would have let them, they would have taken my entire retirement account fighting the system. But it was a point where I had to cut it off after about 6 years of fighting. And now that my daughters can see that it was all, a big sham, still my relationship to them is wrecked.
Certainly, Russ, and thank you for calling in today. Here's the thing, Michael and X. We've been swamped with stories abound. What Russ was just talking about, and not to twist off on all of this stuff, but I think we can stay on this for a moment. We're starting to connect the dots. I just mentioned before about some of the individuals that are doing research, and that's exactly what's happening. We encourage people to contact us to help us research these stories, these incidents that we're hearing. But I got to tell you that the dots are starting to get connected, and of course, we need to be careful. We have to make sure, we have a responsibility not only in our paper but here on the radio show, and that's sometimes why we're nibbling around the edges. But I got to tell you guys, this is a cesspool, and the whole kids for cash. And what's happening with Danielle Ross, the admitted felon here in Lackawanna, the guardian ad litem? I got to tell you, folks. This is just the tip of the iceberg, and I have a whole list of stuff that we're going to talk about. Some of the pledges that people want our politicians to take, and not just politicians that are looking to get elected, but people that are elected now. And we have to make some real changes, guys.
We really do. And X talks about those psychopaths with power, and how better to get control of someone, Lou, directly through your family.
Oh my God!
There's no better tool than to attack you and your family, to control you and your family. So X does hit it. There is a element of psychosis here, and to be able to get up in the morning and say you're doing your job while you're destroying things, I don't know how a sane individual can actually do that on a daily basis.
And it's all connected. There's so much that's connected, Michael. X, I was telling Mike here before we got on air some of the dots that we are connected here, but people are being sent for drug tests, and then you find out who owns the drug company or the drug testing company, and who are these psychiatrists, and we laid that out last week. And then of course, there's a lot of different groups coming to us also, and that's one of the reasons why I think we're getting followed in so many different areas right now, because this is not just a problem here locally. Certainly Lackawanna and Luzerne County, we're probably right at the top. But there's certainly instances throughout the country where the whole judicial system has run amok, and there's no oversight. And then what gets me even more is how difficult it is to do the research, and that's another thing. I mean, we're working with different groups, and we said this before, whether it was Ron Shegler down in the Northampton counties and those groups down there that are coming to us, or the Bruce Levines here locally that are doing research, and then they go to their state senators, and they go to the attorney generals, and they start bringing the information to these people, and then they're told, well, did you do the research? Did you bring us proof? And I'm thinking to myself, I'm driving in here this morning, bring you proof. Isn't that what you guys are supposed to do?
Exactly.
If somebody brings you an accusation, aren't you supposed to do the research? You guys are the guys that have the subpoena power. So those are some of the things that we're up against. Anybody that's done any research, we talked about Kathy Dobash doing rights to knows, Frank Sorix. I mean, we got some more information back on some of the right to knows that we put in, but they only give us tidbits. You get a little bit here, you get a little bit there, come back later, come back next month, come back 12 years from now, and you wonder why. And then when you go to the FBI, when you go to the Attorney General, then you're told, well, bring us proof. X, it might be like the Wizard of Oz. Go get bring us the stick.
The witch's broom.
Yeah, bring us the witch's broom. So we have to go out and go after all these. We have to go after the witch.
I mean, let's think about the famous psychology experiment that they did where they divided the students. Half of them were prisoners and the other half were prisoner guards. And then they found out that, after a while, those that were playing the role of guards, remember, they're just playing a role here. They actually weren't real prison guards, that their behavior started modifying because they were in positions of power. They did an experiment recently where one of these local police forces were given monitoring devices like Google glasses, per se. And they found out that the levels of police abuse dropped by 60% because those in positions of power realized that they were being watched. Now, this is kind of going back to this objection here that we have with the Barbara Boxers and stuff of the world. Dianne Feinsteins of the world, because this proves their hypocrisy. Anyone that's saying don't worry, you don't have anything to worry about, but I need to watch you to make sure you're kept safe, but then objects to the exact same condition, just points out the hypocrisy that we have within our own system. And you want to throw another one on top here. Lindsey Graham, was talking to John Kerry the other day. And again, it just gives you the idea that they're all working together. They're just wearing different hats, but all actors in the same play.
And who's watching? Yeah, and that's the thing. Who's watching the judiciary? And that's something that we're going to get into a little bit. The next segment here is, and that's the problem. The judiciary has made up their own rules. We talked about jury nullification, and once again, if you're a new listener, if you're listening throughout the country here, and go to our website, go to the Wilkes-Barre Scranton IG.com, go to Muckraker News, and just type in jury nullification, and you'll see the rules that the judges and the lawyers have put into place for themselves to make sure that they're not being watched. Why is there no cameras? And we're gonna bring this up, folks, and I'm going to tell you that these groups and these people are starting to gain steam here, and they're starting to feel emboldened. And those individuals that are running for office, elected and non-elected, we're going to be asking you, we're going to be saying, why are you going to introduce legislation to put cameras in the courtrooms? Why should there not be? Somebody please tell me why we shouldn't have a black box. So if you're going to call me and tell me that we have to protect the children, we're not saying that it needs to be made public, but certainly X and Michael, we've had information to where, and I'm hearing this from lawyers, where the transcripts have been changed. Well, I don't know if it is or not, but I could tell you one thing: if there's a video going, somebody could go back in and look at this. So what we're saying is we want cameras in those courtrooms to protect the kids, to protect the judges. If that's what they're so worried about, that's what we need this in there for. And the judiciary itself is not going to change this. It's only going to come from the legislative portion of our government.
Well, think about Lou. Think about in the right around the time of 9/11, when Bush first got into office, how the left was up in arms that Dick Cheney was meeting with oil executives, and he was trying to claim some sort of executive privilege to be able to talk to them without anything being recorded or anyone knowing what happened in the meetings. Now you flash forward here, and we have the same sort of thing going on here. Where were all of the healthcare debates that candidate Barack Obama, remember, in order to get people into bed, so to speak, with his candidacy, he told them he was going to put all of that on C-SPAN. All the negotiations were going to be on C-SPAN, and it's going to be the most transparent administration ever. Now, just the other day, Joel Abramson, executive editor of the New York Times, the New York Times here said, "This is the most secretive administration I have ever dealt with in my 2-decade-plus career." Okay? So this whole BS, but now what happens is if you just grab the average Democrat on the street and go, is this a transparent administration? Is this the most transparent ever? A lot of them just, they hear it, and that's what people have started to understand. The people in politics nowadays, they just tell you what they want to be, but not what they are. But if they repeat it long enough, just kind of like Goebbels, you tell a lie and it's a big lie and you tell it often enough, people will believe. Just from, that's what the mantra is within the populace.
Well, we're going to take a break. When we come back, we're going to be continue our conversation on this and other topics. 888-577-4487. You are listening to Sanity Check.
Jerry and Lou, Saturday mornings, 94.3 FM, The Talker.
as we roll down this unfamiliar road. And although this wave is stringing us along, just know you're not alone, 'cause I'm gonna make this place your home.
And this is your home, 94.3 FM, The Talker. This is Sanity Check, Libertarian Lou, Tea Party Mike. We got X on the phone. Hey guys, I just want to read some announcements that we have. This comes from the Factoryville Sportsman's Club. This is your invitation to join your friends and fellow NRA members for some fine food, fellowship, and fun at the Northeastern Pennsylvania Friends of the NRA. This is the 22nd annual banquet on Saturday, March 29th. And that's at the Genetti Manor in Dixon City. That's March 29th at 5 p.m. I do have a individual you could call to Carl Mozeletsky. Sorry about that, Carl. At 570-587-2662. If you need more information, certainly you could call the Factoryville Sportsman's Club or go to friendsofthenra.org. There's information there. We certainly want to put that out if the Second Amendment means anything to you. If you think it's important, you might want to check out this event. Certainly, we have another one, too, and I'm going to invite John DiLiberto a little bit on this. This is, please be advised that we, the people, will be holding an election for the reinstating of the common law grand jury here in Luzerne County. Luzerne County Community College, they're holding that event. This is Thursday. This is going to be interesting, guys. I don't know that much about the common law grand jury, but that's on Thursday, March 20th, 6:30 p.m. Once again, if you're listening to this show, maybe for the first time, we try to raise questions. We try to bring to the forefront stuff that a lot of times we don't know, and we try to inform not only ourselves and our listeners, but also our elected officials. So, John, just give us a thumbnail on what is this? What is the common law grand jury? What's that's all about, and this upcoming event being held at Luzerne County Community College?
Yeah, and that's going to be Building 3, Room 304. So the common law grand jury, a few of us are looking into this, including some associates and supporters of the paper. And one of the websites that we're appealing to is nationallibertyalliance.org, www.nationallibertyalliance.org. And that site claims that the duty of the common law or citizens grand jury, both it's known by both terms, is to expose all fraud and corruption in the political and judicial realms.
Ooh.
And they appeal to common law tradition, to the Fifth Amendment, as well as to the Magna Carta. They go all the way back to some of the rights mentioned in the Magna Carta to drive their authority for this type of grand jury.
So basically, what is it supposed to do? Or it gives the individual people like you and me the authority to call our own grand jury, and then maybe have the right to investigate what perhaps maybe the investigators are not investigating. That's
right. That's right. Unlike the grand jury that we typically hear about, it's functionally independent from the judicial branch, and that's right from Supreme Court case U.S. v. Williams, and majority opinion written by Antonin Scalia. And he wrote that it acts independently of a prosecuting attorney or judge.
Okay, all good stuff. Hey, Michael and X, a couple other things I want to talk about. Matt Cartwright here for a minute. Certainly over the last few weeks, we have sent out questionnaires to our elected officials, and you wonder why sometimes we don't get the responses that we do. I'm going to... And to Matt Cartwright's, I guess, to give him a little bit credit, at least he got back to one of our constituents. He didn't get back to us, but thanks for the info, Shane. That was the individual that sends out Matt Cartwright's PR press releases, and he sent it to us on the Sherman Hills Task Force, and that's not what I want to talk about, but it was responded back to by John Manco here, who does our IT stuff, and this is what he sent to him. Thanks, though I must say that it would have been nice if you or the congressman also answered my previous inquiry on January 19th regarding the vote on the spending bill. I now suspect he's only interested in PR as opposed to explaining his votes to his constituents. I'll be sure to note that in my article next month, along with a mention on our radio show. Be sure to tune in this Saturday at 7 a.m. and make sure the congressman is next to his phone in case he wants to call in to comment. So certainly we'll throw that out there. But that was the response that we gave back to Matt Cartwright's office, and what it was all about, guys. If you remember, we asked everybody, all our local congressmen and our United States senators to comment why they voted on the voting bill, on the budget bill, and we put out a $500 reward for anybody to get anybody to answer, and one of our constituents did get an answer back from Matt Cartwright, and basically he said, this is what he said, you asked whether I read the bill, because that was one of our questions. If anybody knows us, we lay it right out there. We let people know the questions that we're asking. And that's what gets to me, Michael and X. You know, I have to call them empty suits sometimes because we ask the tough questions, but these are questions that I believe that we as citizenry should know. Do these people read the bills? So this was simply reading the text of a bill would actually provide insufficient insight to its merits. So when considering proposed legislation, I first seek to understand the intent of the legislation. So he didn't read the bill. And then we also went on to ask him about the Federal Reserve. And once again, we encourage folks that are listening here for the first time to check out the Federal Reserve. We've talked about the Federal Reserve ad nauseum here, and once again, trying to educate folks that the Federal Reserve System is a privately owned institution. So he says the Federal Reserve System in the central bank is the central bank of the United States. That's correct. And it was created by Congress in 1913. That is correct. The Federal Reserve is an independent government entity with a public mission to provide a safe, flexible, and stable monetary financial system. I have to question that. Certainly, when you read the Act, the Federal Reserve Act, it was to preserve the value of the dollar. Anybody that knows, looks in your pocketbook or puts your hands in your pocket, you know that since 1913, the value of the dollar has decreased about, I think, 98% or 96%. We could argue over that. And he goes on and says, it derives its authority from Congress and is subject to oversight by Congress. We would love to understand what that oversight is, because they certainly haven't done a full audit on the Federal Reserve ever. And this is what got me. So in a sense, the people own the Federal Reserve. So Michael, congratulations. You own the Federal Reserve. Then everybody out there listening, ask Matt Cartwright. Thank you. We never knew that we the people, own the Federal Reserve. So, for anybody that had any questions who thought maybe the Federal Reserve was somehow federal in a reserve, and we've talked about how that is all meant to deceive, that you, the people, according to Matt Cartwright, you own the Federal Reserve in a sense. So I don't know who wants to comment on that one. Of course.
Well, this is the typical response that any attorney would give you.
I mean, it's unbelievable to me. So in a sense, you own the Federal Reserve. And once again, the other empty suits never even responded because we asked them these same questions. Think about that. Who owns our debt? We keep going over that. We have to keep bringing this up. And unfortunately, the fastest hour in radio sometimes go very fast. So we can't dig into these subjects as much as we want to. But we've asked all our local congressmen and United States senators who owns our debt. He went on to explain that too, but it was a little convoluted, so I'm not going to get into all of that. But, it's really amazing me, guys. It really is.
Well, Lou, this is what we have again, is we have people in elected positions of power who make decisions every day but have no idea about what the pieces on the chessboard do and how they move. And they're making policy a lot of the times based on emotional decisions that are out there. It's like, I think it was Cynthia McKinney or something like that this past week talking about the Constitution being 400 years old. We have many, many people within our own government that, their understanding of what the Constitution
John
says.
DiLiberto just picked himself up off the floor. He's shaking his head here.
But I mean, you can just sit there every day, and there are examples of this coming out, that the people that we put into power have no true understanding as to what the Constitution is, what the Constitution was designed for. Remember, it's a limitation document. It is not a permission slip. And the distortions that we have, whether it be with the Fed, whether it be what's going on in the Russian situation right now in Crimea, it all has to do with the fact that the American public is always being kept in the dark about what the real players and motives are. We're always given, let's say, the superficial. It's kind of like Bush standing on the wreckage after 9/11, and he says they attacked us for our freedom, which, of course, is the biggest, that had nothing to do. 9/11 had nothing to do with that. But you repeat that mantra over and over again that they attacked us for our freedom. So what did we do as the American public? They took our freedom. We are worse as a country in terms of civil liberties protection than we were, and it's getting worse every single year.
We pointed that out. We're going to take a call. Ben is on line 2. Good morning, Ben.
Good morning, gentlemen. Great to hear your show. I love it every week. I just wish you were on more and longer. But the point I'd like to make is this, and watching all of this stuff unfold now in the city of Wilkes-Barre, where we've got the FBI investigating credit union, the employees, the city employees credit union. The gentleman who was the president of that credit union takes his own life upon the initiation of this investigation. We've also got the FBI investigating this, I believe it's 60-some thousand gallons of gasoline that's missing from the city gas pumps down there over the last few years.
For years.
And the more I think about this, the more I'm starting to realize that if we put the population of the area who's in the private sector on one side of a scale and put the public employees from the cities, the counties, and the municipalities in our area here on another side of the scale, I think we would find out that the crime rate on the public employees is higher than the crime rate in the private sector. I mean, it's amazing to me how these people are getting into these positions and they're no more than common thieves.
Ben, I couldn't agree with you more here, and that's why it's so important. We have elections coming up, and we keep trying to tie this all in, Ben, is why it's so important to have a free and independent press. Yes, we're still small, but we're growing. And we're giving information to folks that would not normally get the information that we're talking about. And then you have free and equal elections. We're going to have those choices coming up. And
well, free and equal elections to me means that when you vote for something and the majority of the people vote for that thing, that it stays as being what the decision is. But just take a look, let's say California, where I believe it was over 9 million people voted for marriage to be between a man and a woman. We then have people, come back and fight that. It goes before one judge who is an openly gay judge, and with the stroke of a pen, he nullifies the votes of over 9 million people. And this is not the way the system is supposed to be run.
No, it's not. And then what you need to do is you have to have a legislature that has some backbone, and that's why we're trying to tie this all in, where first of all, you have to get the information, then you have to have a system where you could get on the ballot equally, where you could have a free and equal election, and then those people that are elected, Ben, have to have the ability, or at least we have to have the ability to follow up and to make sure what they say they're going to do, they're going to do. We've talked about the judiciary for so long here that they put their own rules into place. And we could do shows upon this, but at the end of the day, it's going to take the will of the legislature to start reining in this runaway judiciary. Go ahead, X, and we're going to have to take a break. Thanks, Ben, for calling in.
And a good thing, Ben, is, just like the judge nullified that particular law, guess what? You can sit on a jury and nullify enforcing an unjust law. And what will happen is let's put our eyes right now on the state of Connecticut, where they estimate there's over 300,000 people, gun owners, that are not compliant, that are now officially felons in the state of Connecticut because they failed to register their firearms. This is going to be very, very interesting. I can't wait for the first court cases to go, and I'm hoping that the juries there nullify and exonerate every one of these people that get brought before them.
And, just talking about, the tough questions that we're asking individuals, and we're going to continue to do that as we move forward. I'm going to tell you right now, for our listeners right now, the folks that are running for office are going to be asked questions that they've never been asked before, and having the ability to be able to put it in writing and let it land on people's doorsteps is going to be huge. We're going to ask the tough questions. And it starts with free and equal elections, which is straightforward, not political talk, being smuckered by Senator Smucker of the Republican Party right there in the legislature. And on the free and equal elections, Michael and X, I just want to say that we got a handwritten note from Senator Republican Michael Fulmer thanking us this past week for your continued support of SB 195, which is what he introduced. God bless Mike.
Amen.
And from Senator Mike Fulmer, and we thank him for that. And this is what we're talking about. We got to talk about individuals, not about the parties. We're going to take a break. When we come back, we want to talk a little bit about our upcoming not only our upcoming shows, but also our upcoming Indiegogo fundraising drive. We'll be back. Sanity Check.
You've been let down by the political class? Then you're looking for Sanity Check Saturday mornings on 94.3 FM, The Talker.
So wake me up when it's all over, when I'm wiser and I'm older. All this time I was finding myself and I didn't know I was lost.
And that's what we're doing. We're trying to wake everybody up. This is 94.3 FM, The Talker. This is Sanity Check. And, hey, guys, this coming week, we're going to launch our Indiegogo drive, and that is to help us expand. And so if you're listening to us and you're on our email list, you could always unsubscribe, or if you want to subscribe, if you think what we're doing is of value, that as we move forward, we can help not only to inform and educate, but to help shape elections. And at the end of the day, guys, that's what this is all about. We have consequences coming up with elections, and certainly what we've been doing with the Independent Gazette and Sanity Check and why we've done what we've wanted to do. All I could say right now is that we are growing. Our sites are growing. People are coming to us asking for information. We're proud, Michael. I know you're proud, and actually you've been part of this right from the start, too, that you're proud of what we've been able to accomplish to date, and it's growing. I said at the beginning of the show that our sites, people have visited us from every single state in the union this past week. Countries from around the world. So we're starting to gain that influence, and it's really amazing to us. But now as we move forward, we want to go into the Poconos, and we want to bring stuff down into San Antonio and Arlington and continue to grow. And as they say, freedom is not free. So we're going to be asking folks to look at what we're doing. We're not, and all we're doing really is asking folks to look at, some of the perks that we're going to have out there. Look at maybe a T-shirt or getting a subscription, because I got to tell you guys, this is how we could really help change what is happening locally and nationally throughout the country.
Lou, and it is so true. And X brought up, the folks that we elect in, and the problem is exactly what was said. It's the people that we elect in. So we as a society have to take some responsibility of the way our government's going, because we continue to have a mindset of voting in the same people from the same party doing the same thing. And it's not for representing us, it's for representing their power. And we go right back to the narcissism, to the psychosis of power. So we, the people, have the power, and I don't want our listeners to ever forget that, Lou.
And you, the people, have the power. You're exactly right. And, Michael, once you have a voice, Now the initial stage of our elections have started. You're going to have this. You're going to get to see who's on the primaries, which of course is only the Republicans and Democrats. But now also begins where individuals, you people out there that have agendas, and we don't care whatever that agenda might be, but the only way you push that is to get on the ballot. Look who's running. If they're not the constitutional people that you want to represent you, you have the ability to get on the ballot starting now, and that's how you're going to make real change. Who do we? I think we cut somebody off there. But Michael, you still on?
I'm here.
Okay. So anyway, as we move forward, that's what this is all about. You have an opportunity to be heard. Something that people didn't always have the ability to be able to come on shows like this, come on the David Madeira show. You have now newspapers now that are willing to write about their candidacy. And we want to empower individuals to take back their government. And only through debate, and only through free and equal elections, and only through a free and independent press does that change.
Lou, I just want to jump on here. Power corrupts, and absolute power corrupts absolutely. And the best solution to corruption is always transparency and sunlight.
Over the next couple of weeks here, I spoke with a Dr. Fine, and our time has run out with that. He has an initiative, and we're going to be rolling out a pledge. This is a lawyer in California that was jailed for 18 months, and we'll get into that story next week, along with Senator Nancy Schaefer's story. We want to talk about that. People that have stood up against the powers to be, and it's tough. We play the song Brave. It's tough for those individuals out there to stand up, and it takes bravery to stand up and to have a voice against these powers, because they will come back. The intimidation factor is huge.
It is huge, Lou, but again, it's all about just moving forward, and through our entire history, it's always been about those individuals willing to stand up and take the hit for the rest of the culture, and I think that's what we're seeing here today.
It absolutely is. X, we're down to the last minute. Any last words of wisdom?
Oh, let's just always focus in right now this week on what's happening with the missing airliner. So much for, the CIA, the FBI, all of these agencies that are designed to keep the skies free from terrorist activities. A gigantic jet has disappeared, and they don't know where it is. So much for their surveillance.
So next week we'll be back. We'll be talking certainly about some of the more about custody for cash. We're going to be talking about how you the people, you can really make a change. Michael, we're out of time. We ran out of time. You got the last word, my friend.
We do, and God bless all.
God bless everybody. See you next week.